Hey everyone, welcome back to the VoskCoin YouTube channel. I have two legends here with me today, OhGodAGirl Kristy and Reuben Yap. There's a Yap. Introduce yourselves and tell us all about you.
Hi, I'm Kristy, formerly of Genesis Mining and Chorus Scientific, most known for Enlargement as well as Prog Pow. Do a lot of stuff in the mining space, currently working on layer 1 protocols and zero knowledge proofs.
Right, I'm Reuben. I am part of the core team of Firo. We are a privacy-centric cryptocurrency and, a very long-time supporter of GPU mining. Getting into mining was almost like a user education process into your ecosystem, and as you say, maybe now it's too easy. Everyone's just like mining to an exchange directly. Now, to be fair, of course, Vosk is talking about like, do projects support GPU miners? And in my personal point of view, Firo has for 6 years, right? Yeah, it's about more. We've been around since 2016, and GPU mining has been one of our so-called pillars, right? We spend, maybe to me it's a bit of like, in retrospect, a bit of a waste of our time when we were trying to develop MTP, hit all sorts of snags, and went into like this whole academic ding dong, and suddenly our algorithm wasn't great, and we spent so much resources on that when we could have been focusing on privacy. And even when we had the chance to switch to a more efficient algorithm, we chose again, we said, yes, we are committing to GPU miners still. This is why we picked Firo Pow. I work with Kristy, and which is Firo Pow is a Prog Pow variant, right? And we were like, look, we want to keep GPU mining. But just recently, I was like thinking to myself, and I wasn't alone, right? Many people were like saying, okay, what have the miners actually contributed to the project? And it's not like, we supported them then dropped them. We have been really supporting them for a long time, and our technology stack, our development has been focused in that direction. 80+% of the hash rate is on 2 miners, right? And we have tried many ways to try to decentralize that hash rate. We've been calling people to decentralize the hash rate. We've been asking, we've been even giving incentives to certain pools, like, hey, here's 100 Firo to pump up your rewards for a bit, so that you can offer a lower, a higher payout, right? That didn't work, or it worked for like a very short while, and then once the incentives dried up, they went back to 2 miners again, right? And we asked 2 miners say no, they chose us because we're the best pool. So we don't see why we should decrease our fee, increase our fees to decentralize the hash rate. And we have helped you guys in the past, which is true. When we were having security issues, working with these pools was quite a smooth process.
Well, so one question regarding 2 miners: have they done anything to contribute to your ecosystem? I know you said you worked with them when you had a security issue, but like outside of that, like do they have any other level of contribution to your ecosystem? Like Kristy said earlier, like in the beginning, Ethereum mining pools were running grants and related to the ETH ecosystem. Does 2 miners take any initiative like that?
I'm not significantly. I think they contribute like $5 or $10 to our fund every month. I'm not sure even if that's going on. They probably wrote like one or 2 articles about us, which is appreciated, but I feel like if I had to say which was the pool that supported us the most, it has been Minehan. Minehan's like a small pool, and he was developing, that time when he was developing MTP, he developed the whole like MTP custom stratum himself, released that open source, and that was like significant development work, and that's something I appreciated. And every time we said like we needed some sort of reference pool infrastructure, Minehan was always there to help us, and we were like really thankful for that. But the other pools, they have definitely helped us during the when we were experiencing like security issues and stuff like that. We could like roll out security updates to them really quickly, and they were very helpful on that. But yeah, in terms of contribution, otherwise no. So that's what few miners argument was like, yeah, because you are super centralized. So we are super centralized. So that means like if there are any security issues, you just have to come to us, and you're good, right? And that's a point, but it's also not the point. You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
it's definitely not the dream. You weren't like setting out on this proof of work journey like, man, I can't wait until one mining pool has almost all our hash rate. That's not the goal.
Yeah, like miners, even our mining channel, like I even asked like, hey, could you guys contribute and tell me what your hash rates are on different hardware with Firo power, right? Because yes, it's prop power variant, it should be more or less the same, but we haven't seen this helpful community. Unlike the master nodes, they have been much more supportive and engaged with the project, right? And when we started the poll, DJ Minds interviewed me and stuff like that, and I was like, sharing our thoughts. Because one thing that really, really kind of shook me was, when we were 51% attacked, we didn't see any sort of help from miners or any sort of like attempt to try to secure the network. We didn't, when we asked for donations, it was not miners that were giving to us. It was the masternode holders that were giving to us. When we asked for feedback, any sort of governance, the miners were also not engaged. Maybe that's the project's fault, but on the other hand, the masternode holders were very incentivized to give their views. Right or wrong, they were vocal and really wanting to get involved in the project, right? And I said like, look, miners, please, if you can hear me, for the very one thing that you could do the show, at least you care about, because everyone's like saying, oh, we provide your security of the network, we do all these wonderful things. I'm like, well, decentralize your hash rate. It costs you nothing. These other pools are getting enough blocks per day so that it's not like very irregular payouts. There's no reason why you can't just shift your hash rate. And a couple did, but I was looking at the trend, or it was like within the margin of error, maybe 2% change. Like it wasn't anything that was noticeable. And all these miners saying, oh, we're mining Ethereum right now, but after Ethereum goes proof of stake, we'll mine you then. Therefore, I want to vote, or I'll screw you. Now I'm not going to mine Firo because you guys not supporting miners. You guys aren't even out of our community yet if you aren't mining. I mean, if you don't really hold Firo, if you don't really mine, and that actually made a lot of Firo holders really upset. They were like, why are you giving the voice and an equal vote to miners who aren't part of your ecosystem or aren't a big part of the ecosystem? Why don't you just give it to the coin holders, which I said was totally wrong? But it showed that I really wanted the miners' feedback. Why would I go publicly on a mining channel, even DJ Minds, yourself, and say, miners, please, do something, right? And it's not that we want to play them out. It's just that it's more of like a last call for help. If you guys don't do anything, then the project is not going to support you. And so 2 miners is the number one pool. I think it's around 50+%. And Firo actually has like a secondary, well, it's not second, now it's like has a additional layer of protection, which is called chain lock.
So miners are inherently lazy. There are some good apples, but as a general trend, just GPU miners are lazy. And it's really up to...
Dare you.
Yes.
Dare you.
It's up to 2 things. It's up to the mining pools as well as the core developers to basically... This is going to sound bad, but I don't know of a better analogy. Miners are sheep and you are shepherds. And it's up to the mining pools and the core developers to herd the sheep. So mining pools over in Bitcoin, right? They are all very good friends. They all coordinate. If there's ever an issue where too much hash rate sits at one pool, the mining pools go to Twitter, they talk about it, and they, shuffle hash rate over. Sometimes even using proxies to route hash rate from one pool to another. It's very much a thing that's done on the mining pool layer. And so 2 miners should be taking a stand and helping diversify some of that hash rate for the health of the ecosystem and also for their damn reputation. And the fact that they're not shows me that they really do not understand the risks of centralized hash rate, all the risks that we've already been through for those of us that were here in 2010 and 2011, and two, that they really don't care about the project. I don't expect GPU miners to switch off, because knowing Firo's community, a lot of them probably don't pay attention. A lot of them probably just set their rigs and forget. And the second is that it is up to the core developers to curtail the protocol or adjust the protocol every now and then, so that, you know, miners still have a place, they're still a part of the ecosystem, but they're not a majority part. So this is what Ethereum did really well. It curtailed rewards, it added on the difficulty bomb. It said miners have a place, but so do users, so do node operators, so do all these parts of the infrastructure in the stack, so that you would get good coordination. I honestly think, I think that masternodes might have killed Firo's ecosystem. Because once you introduce masternodes, miners didn't really have a need or a role. And so what do you think about that, Vosk? Have you seen any ecosystem that's had both mining as well as masternodes, so this hybrid proof of work, proof of stake, where it's worked?
Maybe you're inclined to point a finger at masternodes because we're like searching for a reason, right? But I think we've just we've watched GPU mining as a community and ecosystem degrade year over year over year. I think, again, I don't mean to blame some major projects, but like when ASIC miners come out unannounced, and you last week built out a GPU mining rig for maybe thousands of dollars, and that could be a very substantial sum to, you know, very many people. And then the next week, unannounced, you know, an ASIC miner comes out for the coin you were planning, started, excited to mine, and then that project doesn't take any sort of stance to protect the GPU miners with, say, a new mining algorithm, or like on the front of making an algorithm that equalizes ASIC miners and multi-purpose hardware like graphics cards. When there's nothing like that there, you know, that's how you end up with this apathetic mining community that it's almost like, you know, you think mining's cool, but you're like a sad boy, they call them in this era. You're like, you know, mining's cool, but nobody cares about me. You know, so I don't really care about anybody else. It's almost like GPU miners, like as a whole, you could view them through like, they're like kind of depressed in a way. There's not enough projects kind of picking them up, empowering them, and be like, you know, come mine for us. I think from a protocol level, there's a lot of things that aren't happening. And I'm no developer. I don't know, you know, exactly how we can implement these things, but like some things that come to mind, you know, longevity rewards, right? So let's say you're mining a coin, and you get 50% of your coins today, and you get 50% paid out over the next year. I remember a couple years ago, Zuko, which I personally don't really, I don't really like them. You know, from the things I've seen and read and whatever else, just to preface it. And I was like, dude, what the hell is he talking about? Time locking rewards for a year? That's ridiculous. But you know, I've been like, this is the stuff that keeps me up at night, probably like you both too. Is I'm just like, you know, how can I like do my part to save mining? Like, you know, there's gotta be a way, and there's problems that I can help solve, even, you know, from like a content creator point of view, or at least try to contribute and, you know, be a positive force. And you know, so maybe instead of having all your rewards come out that day, there is some kind of time lock period, or there's like a ramp up period. So like, you know, you start mining, you get 50% rewards, but then, you know, they slowly build up, and you have, and it's not just that, but that's just like one example that comes to mind, is basically rewarding good behavior and longevity and support, instead of having the profit switching miners that look at what to mine. Oh, this coin's a top today, I'm gonna go mine that. This coin's a top today, I'm gonna go mine that. Because that mindset breeds dumping, not caring, not being involved. You're chasing dollar bills, you're not chasing, you know, stacking sats or building up your Ethereum or your Firo or any other coin. It's that profit chasing mindset, and how too many people in this era look at cryptocurrencies and they compare them to the dollar fiat value, and not just like, way back when I was just like, man, I want 100 of this coin. And then I look at the supply of this and maybe the market cap. Ooh, I need 1,000 of those. This is getting exciting. And now it's just all about, I mined X dollars on this, or I made $1,000 mining this month. And I've actually had to revamp our content to be interesting on that front. My videos start with, I mined $81 a day. How did I do it? What did I use? And all the other details. But people, if I said I mined 47 Kadena today, people would be like, the f-? Okay, but if you're in the know, you're like, oh wow, that's a lot of money, in the fiat value. But again, I think part of it comes back to a lot of things have become too easy. A new problem that has surfaced on that front is people are respecting cryptocurrency more than ever before. They know it's not going away, and they know that there's just all this money to be made, and money to be made breeds greed, and that breeds all of these potential actors of wanting to get in and make hardware. And like you said, they could go away, and that could be an issue. But then, like there's always the conspiracies of, well, NVIDIA is going to release all these mining focused GPUs, and they're just going to sell them out of the back lot, like private deals, and those never hit the public market. And then you have a centralized level of GPU mining, or with the ASIC mining front, how much money can you make developing an ASIC miner in private? If it costs you, say, $1 million, but your returns are well, I don't even need to throw numbers, that's not the point. Whatever your return is, it's the person who has enough money to fund a private ASIC to be potentially developed and built, they probably also have the funds just to have their own mining farm. And why would you bring that to market unless you're a good actor, right? And that could be the case, and that's incredible. I'd love your guys' feedback on it. Another thing I've thought about is, and it's a little lame, it's a little centralized in a way for crypto, but let's say you have ASIC miners, but you need to have some sort of onboarding, right? So I saw with like Helium, they have their onboarding fee, and they take a centralized level of control in their ecosystem. And if you had something like that in relation to ASIC miners, or you could even just have that in relation to GPU miners, you create some kind of intermediary that regulates or even like reviews and keeps track of like what hardware is coming onto your ecosystem, and maybe having a fee to get on. And if you leave for like a certain amount of time, then you have to pay it again. And these kind of punishments could help keep people committed to an ecosystem. And I don't know, it sounds lame. It's like I feel like we have to become like the overbearing parent at this point because our kids are being bad. So we're going to need some new rules to get you guys in line. Otherwise, we're not going to mine anymore. And like what mechanisms can we deploy to reward good behavior and punish bad behavior?
I think one of the things that, I just wanted to kind of like slightly off topic, but kind of also relatable was, I think GPU miners also don't often appreciate what it takes to make a GPU friendly algorithm, right? Obviously Kristy knows, right? She created Proof of Stake, right? And I've asked certain people, and obviously Proof of Stake is a much more superior algorithm to MTP, right? Like in almost all aspects. And yet when we switched, we got actually quite a lot of flack to say, this new algorithm is really making my GPU hot. It's consuming a lot more electricity, and it's burning up my cards, right? Without realizing that, well, first of all, GPUs are designed, to operate at those temperatures, right? And at the same time, if you want like ASIC or FPGA resistance, you have to kind of like really make the GPU your ASIC, and therefore, basically maximizing the usage, right? And I found it frustrating that people saw it as, this was something that we did for the long term. There are many other projects who are claimed to be GPU mineable, but they come up with maybe half-ass algorithms, which will probably have FPGAs on them, right? but it's very hard to detect, right? But they can still say, oh yeah, with GPU mineable, our special algorithm and whatnot. But because Firo is kind of in a unique position where we actually had to go through this like whole nightmare.
People honestly wouldn't be complaining about the power cost if their rigs if Ethereum had been efficient from the start. Like, no one complains about the energy consumption that a gaming card uses when you're playing a video game. Who cares if your card consumes 300 watts if it's playing Elden Ring? You don't complain about it, right? And if Ethereum had been efficient from the start, or let me clarify, if Ethash had been efficient from the start, miners wouldn't be complaining. But miners were very lazy. They used cheap power cables, they used cheap risers, they used crappy V-BIOSes off the internet, but they have no idea what those V-BIOSes actually do. And they deployed it to their rigs, and now they complain because they're going to get wrecked on every other algorithm. Because Ethash was, a crappy designed algorithm. And you look over on, I had this discussion before over in the Bitcoin industry, where it was posed to me, why don't we make a more energy efficient algorithm on Bitcoin? Say we change from SHA-256D to something else and it consumes 50% less power. All that is going to happen is miners have now freed up 50% of their power in their data center, and they're going to go buy 50% more hardware, deploy it to get the same density. Like, it doesn't matter how much energy. Yeah, it doesn't matter how much energy the algorithm consumes. Miners are just going to go and buy more hardware to use up what energy they have. That's all proof of work, is converting energy into dollars. Every single kind of proof of work. RandomX, ProgPow, SHA-256D.